we saw this develop when Obama was running as the Messiah complex is how it was described by the other camp or whatever, and you see some of it coming in with Bernie, that the accusation is that Bernie Sanders supporters see Bernie Sanders as perfect, as the second coming or whatever you want to call it, like that he's Jesus, and you can see it done in some memery imagery and stuff. And so like I think
I like
people are
that
doing
comment.
it in people are doing that in jest, I think, most of the time. But like what they're doing is using parody to basically draw attention to a very real connection. In that, if I were picking somebody in Congress that acts the most like Jesus, Bernie Sanders is probably near the top of my list. Like, I mean, I wouldn't go. I obviously wouldn't go so far as to say he is or anything like that. But like, if I'm looking at people in Congress acting like it, it's not the pro-life, hate mongers and like the ones or the the religious zealots or whatever you want to call them that are like pushing against pushing with Islamophobia or those types of things. The one I would look at is the guy who's just moseying along, doing the best he can to help the people that need the help the most. Like,
While speaking truth,
yeah,
actually yelling truth quite often to power.
yeah.
Which I
So it's
remember
important to be able to
after
accept
he,
flaws in your candidate. Is where I was going with that.
yeah,
Like,
of course. But I remember after he went to Liberty University, Bernie, he went to Liberty University and held this speech, and there was a guy who was an alumni of Liberty University, and he is himself describes himself as a conservative evangelist. He did a podcast, a squeaker, I believe it was, in which he says that when he heard Bernie Sanders walking into that, for him, lion's den, he saw an old wizened Jew walking into a corrupt temple and telling the money handlers and telling the false priests and prophets to lay down their false idols because a reckoning was coming, that it was time for justice again. And that is, like, he was quite literally drawing a parallel to a situation where Jesus does that. He walks into a temple and calls them out, and is very verbal and vocal on their. And so, yes, you can say that he is yelling and calling out truth to power. And yes, you can draw parallels, but as you say, be careful.
yeah,
Because Bernie Sanders is also the guy who voted for getting an arms contract for Vermont, simply because he didn't want to lay off 5,000 people in his state. So he, in that situation, said, these people, they need the job more than I need my integrity on this one point. And like, so yes, he's more integral than anyone else by a long shot. But we also have to recognize, and there were people, they protested him from Vermont, from the Vermont Socialist Party. They went to his office and did a sit-in. He called the Capitol Police and had them thrown out. So, I mean, we have to look at these things and be, okay, he also made mistakes. And he also says, okay, I did this mistake, I moved on.
yeah, yeah.
Oh,
And I mean, to me, it's like you have to keep things in mind or in context of his career and over on the long term. Is like, but if you expect to look back and see absolutely nothing that you disagree with or that is somewhat disagreeable with where he stands now on a particular issue, or isn't more refined or less refined, or hasn't shifted, then you're going to be disappointed. And so it's important to understand in context about where he stands, not just relative to other people, but relative to what we've been able to produce as society for politicians.